Welcome back to my channel. My name is Stacey Flowers and I am a student of Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University and recording this video outside. So hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stacey Flowers and I am a student of Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University and on a journey to become 100% debt free. My current debt is over $183,000. I work part-time, earning anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 a month, and my company just opened quarter time and it is becoming profitable. In this video, I'm on baby step number 1 to save $500. In this video, I'm going to be talking about releasing the emotion of shame and the impact that it has had on my budget and the process. So if you are interested in seeing the steps and what I work through in releasing shame, please keep watching. So this is a video that I did not want to do because shame sucks, okay? It sucks so bad. But I'm hoping that just being outside and just speaking it again for the umpteenth time will make it a little bit easier. But just for references, for those of you who have not seen any of the videos, I did a video on releasing resentment, I did a video on releasing guilt, and the last emotion that I wanted to release during the month of June was shame. And I wanted to release these emotions because they are dramatically impacting my budget in a negative way. I believe that our thoughts create our emotions, and our emotions create our behaviors create our habits, and our habits inform our life. And I also believe that when you want to do something and you're intelligent enough and the information to do it is right in front of you and you have been trying and you have not been succeeding, that it is important for you to examine your life at these different levels, whether it be thought, emotion, behavior, habit, etc. level, because if you're not getting the result that you want in your life, you're the common denominator. And so there's something in there. And I realized that this emotion of shame was driving very specific behavior that was preventing me from progressing in my financial goals. And so I wanted to release that, and that's what I did. My process for releasing, so the emotional work for releasing negative emotions that are impacting the results that you want to have in your life are, number one, I start out with a quick prayer, and I literally just pray for the strength to be honest with myself and deal with the truths that come up, which is a very quick, simple prayer. Then after that, I write down 3 pieces of gratitude, and the gratitude is because I want to maintain my perspective throughout this entire process of digging through these emotions that are informing behaviors that are creating habits and results in my life. And so the gratitude keeps me, I maintain my perspective, right? Like there's nothing that can come up after I put down the gratitude that would throw me off so much that I would be like, I don't want to do this anymore, because I've already set aside the gratitude. And then after I write down the gratitude, I take a deep breath and I ask myself the question, how is blankety blank emotion serving me? Because I'm running with the assumption that I am not doing things in my life that don't serve me. So my philosophy has been adopted from Louise L. Hay's work, You Can Heal Your Life, and that is you know, I'm responsible for every single thing that happens in my life, whether consciously or unconsciously. And something unconscious that often occurs is what happens around emotions. And so I took a deep breath and I asked myself the question, you know, how is shame serving you? And I'm going to try to read from this journal. A note about, let's define shame. This is me procrastinating, it is, but let's define shame, because I did confuse it in the original video, but I hope that it's clear now. I was confusing shame and guilt. Guilt is the feeling that I have done something bad. Shame is the feeling that I am bad. And so today in this video, I'm going to talk about all of the ways that I think I'm a bad person. And doing something bad and feeling like you are a bad person are 2 totally different things. And this is very hard to do. It was hard when I was going through it, or it was hard when I was doing the work. It's hard now even thinking about it. But one of the things that I know for certain about shame is that shame can only live in silence, right? Like that is one of the environmental requirements for shame. And that's often why when we experience things that bring shame to us, there's a lot of silence, there's a lot of hushing, there's a lot of quietness around it. And so the shame that I'm going to be sharing today is the shame that I have as it relates to my money. So without further procrastination, right? So I said, how does shame serve you? Or why do you need shame? I asked myself that question. And my answer is because I'm sucking at being a mom due to my mental weakness. That was my first answer. And then I said, okay, why are you sucking at being a mom due to mental weakness? And then I put, because I went against my word, I failed. I said that I wouldn't go into debt for my company. I literally charged the exact, if not nearly the same amount as I did with other lenders. I feel like I'm facing the same obstacle. And so then I said, okay, well, why does you facing the same financial obstacle make you feel mentally weak and like you're sucking at being a mom? And I said, because I don't have any integrity. And then I said, sometimes in between the whys, I'll say, is that true? And so then I say, well, is that true? And then I said, no. And then I asked myself the question, why do you think you're mentally weak? And I say, because there's stuff that I want to do and teach and show my son, and I can't because I don't want to live in Omaha. Omaha's my hometown, and that's where my son lives. And then I said, why do you have to be in Omaha to be a good mom? And then I said, because that's where my son is, and I should be able to sacrifice for my son. So then I asked myself the question, is that true? And then I say, no, I think I've sacrificed enough. Not even that I don't want, it's not even that, I think I've sacrificed enough, and I don't want my son to spend the rest of his life trying to get out of Omaha. I want him to know he can live wherever he wants to live. I don't want my son to be stuck. And then I said, why? And then I just wrote again, I don't want my son to be stuck. And so then I said, why? And I said, because I don't want him to get hurt. And then I said, why would your son get hurt in Omaha? And I said, because that's where most of my hurt happened. And then I said, I think I'm ashamed for leaving my son somewhere where I get hurt. So I said, and so at that point there was an emotional release, because I was like, you know, I feel ashamed for leaving my son in a place where I get hurt, because the implication for me is that, like, I wanted to protect myself. I didn't want to protect my son. And then I said, so why is it shameful to only save yourself? And then I said, because I'm a mom and I'm supposed to protect him. And then I said, is that true? And I said, no, as his mom, you get to love him, guide him, birth him. I don't think it's my job to protect him. And then I said, again, how is shame? And then so then after I said that, I was crying a little bit. And then I said, how is shame serving you? And then I said, because it gives me a break. And then I said, what do you need a break from? And then by this time, I'm like really crying and like really upset, and I don't really want to say it. And I'm just like, you know, I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. And so then I say, again, what do you need a break from? And I say, I need a break from being a mom. And then I say, why do you need a break from being a mom? And then I say, because I never wanted to be a mom at 17 in the first place, and I am tired. And so then I have a very strong emotional reaction to that, because it's the truth. I did not want to be a mom at 17. I wanted to be married. I wanted to be an adult. I wanted to be financially stable. And so I ask myself, is it true? And then I say no, because of all those things I just said. And then I say, are you ashamed? And so then I say, I have to read it because I just lost my train of thought. And then I say, okay, why is being a mom exhausting? And then I said, it's exhausting because I lost myself. It's exhausting because I lost myself. And I feel like if I don't take a break, I will not be able to find myself. And so there was a lot more crying. And this is why I say therapy is important, because when stuff like this comes up, it is really important it's really helpful to have a professional available to help you examine your thoughts and tease out, you know, what all the meaning is and help you to process. So then I said, because I'm afraid that I won't find myself. And then I say, you know, what part of yourself did you lose? And so then I start to go into some of the things that I lost, like, you know, I really wanted to be prom queen, but I couldn't do that because I was pregnant. Like, I really wanted to do a lot of stuff in high school and I couldn't because I got pregnant. And but then after I'm like crying and sad about that, and I'm like, I'm ashamed that it's still like I have this amazing child and he's wonderful, but I'm ashamed that I really wish I could have been older when I had him, and I really wish I could have not been 17. And so I'm ashamed that sometimes, like, I don't want to be his mom because I was so young and I was such a kid. And so then I say, okay, well, when you say you don't want to be his mom, is there a specific time? And so then I say yes. And then I'm like, well, what are the specific times? And so I start writing down all the times that I didn't want to be a mom. And some of you all know my story, but some of you don't. I was the first person in my family to graduate from high school, subsequently the first person in my family to go to college. And when I went to college, I was accepted into this program called the Mothers Living and Learning Program. And I got to live on campus with my son, which was amazing because I got to have the traditional college experience, and at the same time, you know, raise my son. And so my first day of classes, my son was 3.5 weeks old. I was literally nursing him. In between classes, my mom would come and sit in my dorm, and I would like leave class and go and nurse him. And then, you know, I would go to the library, and then I would go to class, and then I would go back upstairs and be with my son, and it was very hard. Whew. It was really very hard. But I did it, and I realized that I had a lot of shame because I would tell people that I did it for my son. Like, I would say, because people would be like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you able to like be in college, be on the dean's list, graduate, like a nurse, like how are you doing this? And I would be like, oh, you know, my son is my greatest motivator. Like, my son is, you know, I'm doing it for him. Like, I want to change his legacy. I want him to know that it's possible. And then I wrote in my journal, I was like, but that's not true because I didn't really do it for him. The truth is, I did it for myself because I always wanted to go to college. I always wanted to have the college experience, and I feel like I'm a bad person because for nearly 16 years, like, I've been lying and saying that, like, I got through that and I did all that for him, and I didn't do any of that for him. Like, I understand that he benefits from it, like, right? Like, I understand that my son will be this, like, he has a way different life and experience than I do because of the choices that I made. But I'm ashamed for having lied to myself and other people for almost 16 years because I never went to college for him. I didn't get my master's for him. You know, I didn't do all of these things for him. I did them because it's what I always wanted to do. It's who I've always wanted to be. And it was so hard. And I feel like, you know, when I was making sacrifices, I would always be like, oh, you know, I'm making these sacrifices for my son. And it's like, no, I made those sacrifices for myself because this is who I wanted to be. And I feel ashamed sometimes for fighting for my dreams and lying and saying that I was fighting for my son when it was just, I was really just fighting for myself. You know, I feel ashamed for wanting to be away from him, and I feel ashamed for wanting to have the break, and I feel ashamed for wanting to just have a second to catch my breath and just do something for myself that doesn't have anything to do with him, that makes me feel like a horrible mother. And so this is where the shame root was. And so then I'm processing all of that, and then all this other shame comes up, and I think about all of the times that like I lied, because I think for me that's how shame manifests. And one of the things I said very early on, even before I realized that shame was driving a behavior, was that I lie a lot about money. And so, anywho, digging through that shame, and realizing that the lying is actually connected to me wanting to cover up this ultimate shame. And I talk about too, I asked myself again, why did you need shame? And I said, you know, I need shame because it keeps me small. And then I said, well, why do you need to be small? And then my answer is because if anybody ever found out who I really was, right? And shame is I'm bad. If anybody ever found out who I really was, it would be humiliating. It would be unbearable. So I'd rather stay small than actually fully become who I'm born to be and, you know, succeed at this whole budget thing. Because if I succeed at this, people may actually figure out who I really am. And they may figure out that I am a person who did not want to be pregnant at 17. And I was very fearful that that would be interpreted as I didn't want my child. And that's not the case. It's just not the case. But it was very hard to reconcile that. And so the way that shame serves me is it keeps me small. And so then I said, okay, well, are you willing to release the need for shame, right? Like, and that took me, and so I did shame maybe over a 4-day period because it was a lot. And then a couple of days later, I was like, okay, I'm ready to release the need for shame. So I'm ready to release the need to be small. And I did the tapping work after that. And so then I started to tap on, okay, it's okay to be fully myself. It's okay to be bigger. It's okay to be recognized. It's okay to have hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers and fans. It's okay to be big. And I started doing the work on that, and then I just didn't know. And I didn't know that my coping mechanism with shame was lying. I didn't know that that's not where the lying came from. The lying came from something else that I've already processed in therapy, but I understand how the lying got connected to my finances and why I keep sabotaging my finances. Because let's just say, for example, I succeed at paying nearly $250,000 off, right? And that this story of, you know, I started this journey on a part-time income and now I've paid off nearly $250,000. When I do that, who I am as a person, what my company is doing, that's going to be a big freaking deal, right? Like, not because of who I am, but just because that's a big freaking deal to do something like that. And what I realized is that not releasing the shame was me saying, I don't actually want to succeed because I don't want this story to get out. I don't want the story, because the story is too big. Like it's too overwhelming, right? And so I was doing the tapping, like most of my tapping was, you know, even though I want to stay small right now, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm afraid that if I succeed, like, you know, some news outlet is going to pick up this story and all of my dreams are going to come true and people are going to know me and I'm going to be exposed for this fraud that I am because I didn't want my child initially at the age when I got pregnant, and that's awful, you know, even though that's what I'm ashamed of. Like, I deeply and completely love myself, and I got all the way to the point where I was like, it's okay for me to be big. It is okay for me to be a now 34-year-old woman with an amazing, incredible, nearly 16-year-old child who at one point believed and didn't want to be a mother at 17 years old. Like, I tapped until I got to that point. Now, this was heavy, and so I literally probably tapped on this every single day, like, because it just was, that's hard. I mean, the only reason I'm able to say this out loud to the video is because of how much processing I did in therapy, how much journaling I did, and how much tapping I did, because no mother, no person that I am aware of wants to admit out loud that at one point they did not want their child for whatever the reason, right? Some of you guys may be like, oh, you're justified, you were a kid. It doesn't matter if I'm justified. It's not fair to my child, right? But that's not what this is about. So yeah, shame has been impactful to my budget, because now that I don't think that I am inherently a bad person, right? Because now that I've spoken my shame, it can't really exist anymore because it's only can survive in silence, right? I've spoken my shame. I have spoken the effects of my shame, right? Like that, just lying. I have done the processing around it. Shame, that particular issue of shame will slowly but surely die. And what I've felt progressively over the last few weeks in this month of June is the release of feeling like I'm inherently bad. Because if I'm not inherently bad, then it's okay for me to be big, right? Like, it's okay for me to, because here's the thing, in order for me to pay off nearly $183,000, on some level, I'm going to have to earn that. And I also had an issue just with earning that amount of money, because I had this idea that if I earned that amount of money and I was a bad person, then I was going to do bad things with it. But if I'm not a bad person, I'm probably going to do something amazing with that money. I'm probably, you know what I mean? But I couldn't get to the point where I even accepted more money, because I felt like I was bad, and I was trying to keep the money away so that way, because you know how they say money doesn't change you, you just become more of who you are. Well, if I really think that I'm a bad person, then I don't want to become more of that, right? And so releasing shame has been incredibly impactful. Just, you know, accepting the flow of money into my life, accepting who I am. And then also in therapy, I worked on the idea of processing losing myself and what that looks like and what that means moving forward. So yeah, that I'm sorry, this was probably a little bit all over the place, and it's because shame is just really hard. And I may do a follow-up. I don't know. Hopefully this is thorough enough in the editing. But I hope that in me sharing this and expressing this, that it inspires you to do your own work, because I had no idea, right, consciously, that I felt like I was a bad person because of my thoughts that I had from 17 years old. I then further had no idea how that was dramatically impacting my money and my willingness to earn money, the way I spent money, how I talked. I had no idea. And now I know, and now I can do something about it. Now I'm doing something about it. If you watch my budget updates, you can see that I'm doing something about it, right? And that feels good. Despite how awful this feels, that feels good. And now I don't need shame to keep me small anymore, because I'm a good person. And when things get bigger, and when I am exactly who I always dreamt of being, I will still be a good person. And I believe that. And that's what this was about for me, is getting to the point of belief in that. So I'm going to stop talking now. I really appreciate you all for watching this video. So many of you guys have been reaching out to me since I've started this series, and you're like, Stacey, what do I do? I encourage you to follow this process, but if you need support and help, I cannot recommend enough getting a therapist. And I understand that traditional therapy doesn't work for everyone, which is why I'm grateful to have partnered with BetterHelp to be able to provide you licensed therapists right in the palm of your hand. Is there an investment in order to sign up for BetterHelp? Yes, but there is no better, greater investment than to invest in the strength of your mental health. Like, your mind controls everything. And if you just take a month to invest in getting healing and getting your mind right, like, I promise you will not be disappointed. Because the ripple effect of releasing the shame in my life has been absolutely outstanding. And so I deeply appreciate you all for watching and supporting my work. And I look forward to talking to you all again very soon.